I had one of those sessions recently, and I know you, the listener, have been there too. I wrapped up and just felt this deep exhaustion, not the kind where you've run a marathon, but your mind is just uh, completely spent. It wasn't just that the content was hard. It was the feeling of physically pushing against a wall.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Every insight I offered, every little reflection, it just seemed to bounce right back at me. And I left the session thinking, are we missing something here? Are we just going in circles?
It's such a universal clinical experience, isn't it? That
Yes.
moment, the energy in the room just shifts from, collaborative to this strenuous push and pull.
Yes.
And then inevitably you fall into that trap of asking yourself, am I the problem? Is my approach just not working for this person?
Precisely. That feeling of hitting the same wall is exactly what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into the whole landscape of client resistance. And for those of you listening on the go, this deep dive is actually adapted from a really fantastic article on Mentalyc. We're just bringing it to life here in audio.
And we're really glad to feature the perspective of the author. This piece was written by Gargi Singh, a psychologist.
Yeah, her perspective is so practical. And since the article does come from Mentalyc, it helps to know what that is. It's a clinical intelligence platform built specifically to support therapists with things like documentation so we can stay focused on the relationship.
Especially when that relationship is under strain, and that strain is, that's the core of it, right?
Yeah.
Client resistance. The article defines it as an unwillingness or an opposition to change. And the key part is that this can be conscious, but it's usually not. It's mostly unconscious.
Right. And it's a huge point of potential rupture. The article lays out these signs that are, they're so recognizable when you look back, like the conversation that just stays on the surface.
Yeah.
The traffic, the weather, that small thing at work.
Instead of the deep emotional stuff is waiting underneath.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a subtle kind of avoidance. Or you see it in consistently forgetting homework, or always postponing sessions, or showing up 10, 15 minutes late every single time.
Just enough to make sure you can't get into the deep work.
And of course, the short, vague answers. It's like using words as a shield.
What I really took away from that, though, is that these aren't just mistakes. They're defenses.
Yeah.
But the real insight from the article isn't just what resistance looks like, but how we as clinicians choose to view it.
Yes. We have to shift our whole perspective. We need to see it less as a problem and more as valuable information. It's protective.
The article has this great example to illustrate that, the one they call the therapy hopping client. The vignette is about a client who had seen, 6 different therapists in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and they always cited, dissatisfaction with the last one.
That pattern is such a clear signal, though. 6 in 2 years. That's not about finding the right fit. The pattern is the problem.
Exactly. The deeper truth that came out was that they left therapy as soon as it got emotionally challenging.
As soon as vulnerability was required.
Yeah, they had this deep fear of being truly seen. So starting over felt safer than going deeper.
And what's so fascinating there is that the resistance wasn't really about the therapist. It was about the process of vulnerability itself.
Which means what?
It means building that strong, secure therapeutic alliance has to come first, before everything else. If you challenge their defenses before that safety is there, they'll just flee. They'll restart the pattern.
But safety is so subtle. It's so hard to track the strength of that alliance from one session to the next, especially when you're just trying to be present. You get home and you wonder, when did the energy shift? Did I miss a signal that the alliance was shaky?
That's the challenge. You're trying to be the human in the room and the objective observer at the same time.
Yeah, and that's where the source material mentions tools like Mentalyc Alliance Genie.
Right, because it's designed to help with that reflection piece. It can help auto-capture some of those subtle signals, both verbal and nonverbal, that point to alliance strengths or weaknesses.
So it's like getting supervision-like insights, but right in your workflow.
Exactly. It makes that intangible relational work more trackable over time, so you might catch those patterns before they lead to a rupture.
If that kind of objective insight and consistent self-reflection is useful to you, Mentalyc helps. Its Alliance Genie supports your documentation process and stays fully IFAEA and SOC2 compliant, giving you peace of mind. You can explore it at Mentalyc.com. Okay, let's pivot to what I think is the most unspoken part of this, the emotional toll it takes on us. Because no matter how much training we have, when a client shuts down or argues with everything, it feels personal.
It absolutely does. And it creates so much self-doubt. You can feel the frustration building up in your own body. And sometimes, without even realizing it, you start resisting the client right back.
Oh, totally. You pull back. You stop offering the hard insights.
You start intellectualizing just to get through the hour.
There's this quote in the article from Fred J. Hanna. It really hit me. He says, when the client is resisting the therapist and the therapist starts getting irritated, then you have two people resisting each other. That's not therapy. That's war.
That's war. It's so powerful and so accurate because that's what it feels like when you're locked in that cycle. You feel pushed, they feel judged, and suddenly you're both just protecting yourselves instead of working toward a goal.
And the only way out of that war, really, is for us to do our own work. Self-reflection, supervision.
We have to force the reframe.
It's not a personal attack.
It's not. It's just valuable information.
It's a window.
A profound window, yeah. It shows you what they fear, what they value, and what coping skills they've been using their whole lives. The article calls it a teachable moment. We have to shift from why won't they just engage to what is this telling me about what they need to feel safe?
And that reframing is what opens the door to actual strategy. The first big one the source talks about is, well, to stop confronting it, to roll with the resistance.
Which is straight out of motivational interviewing, or MI.
Right.
Instead of arguing for change, you just get curious about the hesitation. You validate their perspective, which is so disarming.
Especially for those reactive clients.
Yeah.
The ones who push back against any perceived challenge.
Exactly. So you use those OR skills, open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, summaries, but you're using them to explore the ambivalence, not to crush it.
Can you give an example?
Sure. So a client says, I know I should look for a new job, but I just don't have the energy. A confrontational response might be something like, well, you have to try.
Right, which just builds the wall higher.
But rolling with it sounds different. You might reflect and say, so the whole idea of a job search feels incredibly draining right now. Even though you see the benefits, the immediate cost just feels way too high.
You're not agreeing with the resistance, you're just affirming their reason for it.
Exactly. It validates the difficulty, and that often opens them up to exploring it themselves.
That's a great distinction. The second strategy is about structure. And this is key for another profile. The crisis-only client.
Oh, yeah. They come in during a crisis, a breakup, a panic attack, and as soon as the fire is out, they're gone.
And then the underlying issue just waits for the next crisis.
Which will inevitably come back, often worse.
So they're resisting the long-term work.
Right. And for these clients, the article says resistance goes way down when you create clear, structured, long-term goals from the very beginning.
So you create a formal treatment plan that goes way beyond just putting out the immediate fire.
Precisely. And that's where something like Mentalyc's AI treatment planner can be really helpful. It helps you build out those structured, client-focused goals so you both have a roadmap.
It externalizes it. So the resistance is no longer about your agenda.
It's about the shared plan. It shifts the whole dynamic from why are you making me talk about this to how are we moving toward our goal?
Structure is huge. But the ultimate shift the article talks about, it really just comes down to presence, full presence.
Absolutely. You can't possibly spot the nuance, that tiny shift in posture, that sudden silence, if half your brain is worried about your progress note.
The paperwork drag, it's
Yeah.
real.
It is. And the source makes a great point that tools like the AI note taker exist to free up that mental bandwidth, so your entire attention can be on the client.
Which lets you catch things like, say, the intellectualizing client.
Oh, yes. The client who uses big words and rationalization to stay out of their feelings. If you're distracted, you might miss it.
But if you're fully present, you can notice it and gently intervene. You can say something like, I notice you're describing this with such clarity, but I'm wondering, where are you feeling this in your body right now?
That kind of precise, in-the-moment intervention is only possible if you're not trying to remember a quote for your note later. The whole point of these tools is to deepen the human connection, not replace it.
And I think the most important takeaway for me and for you listening is that positive reframe. When a client resists, they're using an immense amount of energy to protect themselves.
We have to respect that energy. Instead of meeting it with our own frustration, we can start to internalize the reframe suggested in the article.
Yes. You can think to yourself, look at the raw power being used to maintain this defense. Now, imagine if we could redirect that same energy into working on the goals we set.
They would be so successful so fast. That's the power that's hidden inside the resistance. So we invite you to reflect on that idea of redirected energy in your next tough session. What does that defense tell you about your client's inner strength, and how can you help them redirect it?
If deepening your therapeutic alliance through consistent insight and reflection matters to you, Mentalyc's Alliance Genie helps you track those patterns without the emotional burnout.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you feel a little less alone with this experience and maybe a bit more equipped to turn resistance into information.
Until next time.